What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Coming Off the Bench. Thank you guys so much for coming out here on your Wednesday morning or whenever you're watching this on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for all of your support over the last couple of months. You guys have been absolutely killing it. You guys are just amazing. The support that you guys have given this channel and this show has been absolutely spectacular. So thank you guys so much for all that you have done. Make sure you guys hit the like button on this stream or on this video and hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We are slowly but surely getting there to 1,000 subscribers. So if you guys have not hit subscribe yet, hit subscribe. We're trying to get there. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. But without further ado, let's get into the news, shall we? So we're going to start off with a bit of a breaking story. Just a couple of minutes ago, Peter Thamel of ESPN announced that Ohio State offensive coordinator Brian Hartline has officially left. He is officially gone from Ohio State. I got his tweet right here. Sources say, from Peter Thamel on X, sources, Ohio State offensive coordinator Brian Hartline is expected to become the next coach at South Florida. He's Ohio State's play caller and built a reputation as the country's top developer of wide receivers. So, very, very interesting news. I did not expect this to happen. Yesterday, there was really not that much of a rumor mill going around. Like I didn't feel like there was a real rumor mill that Brian Hartline was going to take a head coaching job. Like, obviously you knew that he was going to be, a highly sought out coach to try and, replace one of these head coaching vacancies. And, you have like Lane Kiffin taking the LSU job. Auburn fired their head coach. USF fired their head coach. Penn State, obviously, maybe even UCLA if, we'll see how that turns out. The new coach that they put in there for the interim being has been doing pretty decently since they fired their head coach early in the season. But yesterday, it felt like there wasn't a real, hey, watch out for Brian Hartline to USF. Like, it didn't feel like that. I didn't see anything on Twitter. I didn't hear anything about it. And then all of a sudden, you wake up in the morning and you just see that notification saying that Brian Hartline's taking the USF job. But you know what? I'm very happy for Brian Hartline. Like I said, I'm not a huge Ohio State fan. I thought this, I was shocked that I saw Brian Hartline going to USF. But this means a lot of things for Ohio State going forward, because now you're going to have to find another offensive coordinator. You're going to have to try and find maybe a new wide receivers coach if you don't bump someone up that's already on the staff, maybe, and we'll see who Brian Hartline, takes with him too from Ohio State to USF, because that's always a very real possibility. And obviously, there's going to be a couple people that leave with Brian Hartline if he asks them to. So that's going to be very interesting to see. We'll see how Brian Hartline is going to be able to, use the NIL money that USF has. Obviously, they're not a big powerhouse in terms of football. They've had some success. This season they had a little bit of success early on in the college football season, but they haven't really necessarily been a powerhouse in terms of college football. So we'll see how they, deal with how he deals with the NIL money, the transfer portal and all of that. But it's going to be very interesting to see, because today is the National Signing Day, and Ohio State has a number one recruit who is a wide receiver who is going to be making his decision today. So with this news coming out that Brian Hartline is leaving Ohio State and going to South Florida, it's going to be very interesting to see if this guy who, by all intents and purposes, a lot of people have said that, he's going to choose Ohio State. Well, if this news of Brian Hartline leaving Ohio State to go to, South Florida is going to make any bit of difference, we'll see. I don't know. But we'll find out later on today when the National Signing Day happens. This kid's going to be, choosing his hat, signing on the dotted line, doing all that stuff. And you know what? Maybe he chooses Ohio State and then he decides to transfer to South Florida to be with Brian Hartline. Who knows? But Ohio State is going to have a lot of things to work out over the next couple of months. And especially, doing this when, they're about to play Indiana in the Big Ten Championship. We'll see if, Brian Hartline is going to stay because, sometimes coaches like to go. They like to go down to their new program and try and build things right away. So I don't know if he's leaving Ohio State right now or if he's going to continue to coach until, whenever Ohio State either wins the championship or gets bounced out in the playoffs. I don't know. I haven't seen any new update or report saying that. So we'll figure it out as the day goes on, I guess. But again, that's going to be very interesting for Ohio State to try and figure out with Brian Hartline. And, maybe do you go back to Chip Kelly? Chip Kelly got fired by the Raiders. Chip Kelly left after a couple years here at Ohio State. Do you go back to Chip Kelly, who had some success, and helped you, win the championship last year? Do you go back to that? I think that's a very real possibility. And I would not be shocked if, somehow, some way that maybe Chip Kelly does end up back in Columbus at some point. But anyways, I wanted to do a little bit of a breaking segment for you Ohio State fans. I haven't really talked about Ohio State at all, or college football, frankly, for that matter, that much. But this was too big of a story to pass up and not talk about because Ohio State's going to be impacted by this greatly. The college football is going to be impacted by this greatly. And we'll see how, what happens with Ohio State and their receiving room with their, offensive coordinator. Do they go back to Chip Kelly? Do they bring someone up from the system? Does Ryan Day, have his hand in something? I don't know. But just thought I wanted to put my thoughts out there, talk about it, and, give you guys my thoughts and 2 cents on the matter. But Brian Hartline to South Florida, leaving Ohio State. Very interesting to see what the future holds for South Florida in that football program. But just wanted to give my 2 cents on that, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming out here on your Wednesday morning. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're at 961 right now. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. And let's get on to the second segment. Since we have no chats, we'll get on to the second segment real quick here. This one's the doozy. This one's going to be a doozy. I don't know. This one's just nuts. Okay. So, if you thought that the drama around the Cleveland Browns wouldn't be even more dumb, wouldn't be even more insane, the Browns and the Browns players' family members always give you something to talk about. And especially, this is typical Cleveland Browns December football. It's always the time when you have some drama, whether it's a player, whether it's family members of a player going on social media, whether it's coaches, who knows? This is always the month where stuff starts to hit the fan. And Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, have been in a competition throughout the entire season. They've been competing to try and get more reps. And obviously, Dillon Gabriel has had the favor of the Browns. He's had the favor of Kevin Stefanski and the coaching staff in terms of getting more reps. And we saw him play and start 6 games. He started 6 games and didn't necessarily look that amazing. And a lot of Browns fans, including myself, wanted to see Shedeur Sanders start instead of Dillon Gabriel. We wanted to see what Shedeur Sanders looked like because what we saw from Dillon Gabriel wasn't good enough. We didn't like it. And so Dillon gets hurt. He has the concussion. Shedeur comes in, struggles during the second half of the Baltimore Ravens game. Since then, he's been fine. He's been okay. He hasn't been great. He hasn't really been outright terrible besides the second half of the Ravens game. He hasn't necessarily been, wow, knock your socks off either. And for the longest time, a lot of Browns beat reporters have been saying that, players like Dillon Gabriel, they like Dillon Gabriel, they like how he's prepared, he comes prepared, and a lot of people like Dillon Gabriel and, want to see him succeed. And a lot of Browns coaches like Dillon Gabriel want him to succeed. And a lot of people feel like Shedeur Sanders wasn't ready coming into the season. But Shedeur Sanders comes in, is okay. Well, the Browns lose 26-8 to the 49ers. And, I make my video. A lot of people make their videos about the loss. But a certain someone decided to chime in on TikTok. And Dillon Gabriel's fiance made a TikTok that went super viral on, maybe not on TikTok, but on Twitter, because she's the fiance of the Browns quarterback who's in competition with Shedeur Sanders, basically laughing at the Browns for losing to the 49ers. And someone in the TikTok comments basically tried to to criticize her, basically saying that little comment you made right there is disgusting. The way you're openly racist, this is Shedeur Sanders' sycophant. She wasn't being racist, by the way. This is just someone being stupid on TikTok. The way you're openly racist is so weird. And you wonder why everyone cheered when Lil Dillon got a little headache and was afraid to play. Nobody in that locker room respects that little dude. Just dumb comment, right? It's a dumb comment by a Shedeur sycophant. It's just dumb. So then someone responds, I'm new here. What did she say that was racist? Which video was it? Someone who does not know what's going on. And then Dillon Gabriel's fiance goes, actually, everyone in the building wants him to play, but you wouldn't know that. But you wouldn't know that because you've never played in the NFL or been a couch, right? I don't know what she meant by been a couch, or I'm assuming she meant been a coach. But so that was the thing that kickstarted everything. That was the thing that, whoa, everybody wants Dillon Gabriel to play. Now, again, I'm just going to say this. To his fiance, Dillon Gabriel is already fighting an uphill battle. He's already fighting an uphill battle with the fans. A lot of fans want to see Shedeur Sanders. A lot of fans did not want to see Dillon Gabriel. Did not like when the Browns took Dillon Gabriel, especially with a top 100 pick. A lot of people, including myself, were not happy when the Browns took Dillon Gabriel in this draft. And a lot of people wanted to see Shedeur Sanders. There's been many people and many reporters who said that the Browns players like Dillon Gabriel and that there really hasn't been any sort of opinions surrounding who they would want at quarterback, whether it be Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel. They basically just say, okay, we got this guy at quarterback. We're just going to go out there and play. When you make comments like this, I'm talking to Dillon Gabriel's fiance. She's not going to see this, but I'm just hypothetically, if she was watching, you are not helping Dillon Gabriel's stature with Browns fans, especially with the more sycophantically vocal part of the Shedeur Sanders fan base. You're just not. He's already fighting an uphill battle. And I think, in my opinion, pretty wrongly, because to me, Dillon Gabriel really hasn't shown anything to be a quarterback. I think I said this multiple times. He's a third string quarterback in my opinion. But I also do think that he's also been kind of treated unfairly by a lot of people because they want to see Shedeur Sanders play. And that's fine. I just wish that a lot of people would be more fair about it. You're fighting an uphill battle if you're Dillon Gabriel trying to be, ingratiated to the fandom. You're trying to be included and supported by fans. You're already fighting an uphill battle. And when you go out there and you create more drama, you create more discussions, you create more angst and animosity towards Dillon Gabriel, rightly or wrongly. rightly or wrongly. This doesn't help anything. And you making a video on TikTok celebrating the Browns losing because your fiance is not playing quarterback because he got hurt and he wasn't playing good, so then they started playing the other guy. And obviously, she's probably seen some of the comments that Shedeur Sanders sycophantic fans have been making about Dillon, and so she's upset. And so then she sees the Browns losing with Shedeur Sanders on Sunday, and then she decides to make a video and make a snarky comment about the Browns and Shedeur Sanders. But then the issue is that you're making things worse. And I'm 100% positive Dillon didn't know what she was going to do. Dillon didn't know that she was going to say this stuff. This isn't like, maybe an Odell Beckham situation where maybe, he tells his dad, I'm not getting the ball. Let's just, I'm not doing this. He's criticizing Baker, to his family. And then Odell's dad just puts out all those videos of Odell being wide open or Baker missing him when he throws him the football, right? This to me, again, it's just so stupid because this is unnecessary drama. And I feel like this is the entire theme of the Browns 2025 season. It's unnecessary drama, and it's drama for the sake of drama. This should not be happening. This is not a healthy team. This is not a healthy organization. This is not a healthy culture because you got a very dominant personality at quarterback in Shedeur Sanders and a guy who's trying to fight uphill against the fans wanting Shedeur Sanders, the fans liking Shedeur Sanders, and the fans not necessarily caring or outright disliking Dillon Gabriel. He's already fighting an uphill battle. It's so frustrating because this should not be happening. This should not be happening. And I think the comments went way too far. I understand that she's probably upset. I understand Dillon Gabriel's probably upset. Dillon Gabriel is probably upset. That's fine. But now we're going to have to sit here and talk about more drama. Look into, does Dillon Gabriel dislike Shedeur Sanders? Because why would she put this out here if she doesn't, if Dillon Gabriel doesn't like Shedeur Sanders, why would she say this stuff? Is Dillon Gabriel telling her all about what's going on in the Browns locker room and in the Browns facility, that all the players want him to play instead of Shedeur? Blah, 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 blah. We're going to have to deal with that for another week instead of talking about football. And that is the biggest problem of this story. And I just wanted to talk about it because some people were talking about it. People were making some very, very, very bad comments about his fiance. I don't care about his fiance is going to back Dillon. Who cares? Who cares? That's what she should do. That's what she should. I don't understand why people are upset at Dillon Gabriel's fiance for trying to stand up and defend her fiance. Who cares? I saw some people making some very stupid jokes and very, very mean comments to her. Who cares? She's trying to stick up for her fiance. If Shedeur Sanders had a fiance, and while Shedeur Sanders was not getting any practice reps, if Shedeur Sanders' fiance was saying stuff on TikTok, I understand where she's coming from, but this is part of the problem. It's part of the problem. But anyway, just wanted to give you guys my quick thoughts about that. It's just, again, it's more drama for the sake of drama, and it's just so dumb. It's so dumb. And I cannot wait until the season is over because I don't know if I can deal with this crap again. I mean, the Shedeur Sanders, Dillon Gabriel discussion and conversation and debate, I'm so over it. I'm so done with it. I'm hoping after this season there's some change because I don't want to have to deal with this for another season. I really don't. So I'm not going to trash her for trying to defend her fiance, but doing this on social media, never a good thing. We've seen multiple examples of this with the Browns when people on social media try and get involved in the Browns' affairs. Doesn't necessarily work out in the end for the player that they're trying to defend with the Cleveland Browns. So we'll see what happens going forward, but I cannot wait for this crap to end. I really can't. Okay. Thank you guys so much for coming out here. We got one more segment we're going to do. Jeffrey Champion 1149 says, I'm sorry, Dillon Gabriel is farther along than Shedeur Sanders. That's why I think next year Shedeur Sanders needs to go. Let him play out this year and then get him out of here. His fan base is ridiculous. Well, I mean, I think a majority of his fan base is very, very sycophantic. But I'm not gonna get rid of Shedeur. I'd rather have him be a backup where he can develop. Jeffrey Champion again. His processing is way farther along. He has better footwork. 49ers game where Shedeur Sanders is getting off the first read way too quickly. There was multiple times he made the wrong decision. He looks like a 5th round pick quarterback with upside. I mean, sure, but again, it's his second NFL start. He's a rookie. He's a rookie quarterback. I mean, he's in his second NFL start as a rookie. Again, I'm not going to kill the guy for not necessarily playing amazing when, it's his second NFL start, and I think he'll be better. And like I said, I wouldn't get rid of him. Keep him. Keep him around. Make him a backup. Develop him. And then in a couple years maybe, or in a year or two, you need to have a spot starter, have him go in there. That's my opinion on it. Okay. Let's get into the final segment, shall we? Let's get into the final segment. All right, Jeffrey Champion again says, I'm just mainly tired of his fan base. If free draft for quarterback, there's no reason to keep Shedeur. I disagree. I think you can keep Shedeur and draft a quarterback. You don't have to do either or. I think you can do either or. You don't have to draft a quarterback and then boot Shedeur. Just all you have to do, you can draft a quarterback, bump Shedeur down to QB2, have him develop behind the scenes while you have your rookie quarterback taking the majority of the reps. It's all you have to do. And then you keep Sanders developing in the background, have him develop over the offseason, tell him, hey, let's work on these things here, boom, boom, boom. Maybe even a new coach comes in, because probably a new coach is going to come in after this season. New coach comes in and says, hey, I like what you did, but you got to work on this. And then have him go in the offseason. And then when April, May comes around, okay, mini camp, OTAs, okay, let's see what you did in the offseason. And then you can go from there. That's what I think that should happen with Shedeur Sanders. So I don't agree with getting rid of Shedeur. Okay, let's get into the final segment of the day, shall we? So here we go. So it's about that time of the year where the mock draft season is going to ramp up into full force. The Browns obviously are in major contention to get a top 5 pick. Right now, I think we are in the 5th. We have the 5th pick in the draft and the 25th pick in the draft with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the Browns have 2 first-round picks. We already have a top 5 pick right now. We're going to be playing the Tennessee Titans, who have the 1st overall pick and are the worst team in football, on Sunday. And a lot of people have been making mock draft videos surrounding, the NFL. And the one guy who has a lot of pull and a lot of wisdom in terms of NFL prospects is Dane Brugler from The Athletic. And he came out with a mock draft earlier today. And he proposed a very, very interesting idea for the Cleveland Browns in the upcoming draft. And this is from dogsbynature.com. You guys can go read this article here. They talk about what Dane Brugler had in his article about the Browns. But he goes, Browns maneuver to land a quarterback in this mock draft. The Athletic's Dane Brugler mocks the Browns trading with Tennessee to select Indiana's Fernando Mendoza. So the Browns would trade up to get the number 1 overall pick. Well, what would they give up? This article goes on. Thanks to a draft day trade with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Barry has a pair of first-round selections at his disposal. With the Browns entering a transition season and the Jaguars coming off a 4-13 campaign, the hope was that both picks would be in at least the top 10. The Browns are doing their part to ensure a high selection, as Cleveland currently holds the number 5 overall selection after the close of Week 13. But the Jaguars are now holding up their end of the bargain, as they are tied for first place in the AFC South, which currently slots in as the number 26 selection. So we have 5 and 26 right now. Still, 2 first-round selections are better than 1, and certainly better than having none, a situation the Browns have found themselves in from 2022 to 2024. The Browns are still in need of a quarterback. While this draft class is still weeks away from being set, and the quality of the quarterback class will be endlessly debated, the need to find a quarterback is still up there for the Browns. And this is Dane Brugler's tweet leading up to the article. This brings us to Dane Brugler's first 2026 mock draft at The Athletic, in which he has Barry sending both of these first-round picks, so picks 5 and 26, to move up to number 1 to Tennessee to select Fernando Mendoza. And I think this is what the article, Dane Brugler says in his Athletic article. Owning 2 first-rounders in April and having received marginal play under center this season, the Browns have the ammo and motivation to be aggressive quarterback hunters this offseason. Cleveland traded back in last year's draft to be in position to get its guy in 2026, and neither Dillon Gabriel nor Shedeur Sanders has done anything to change that plan. In this scenario, the Browns package both of their 2026 first-rounders and possibly a 2027 Day 2 selection to Tennessee for rights to the number 1 pick. Mendoza, whom NFL scouts compare to Goff or Kirk Cousins, I don't see Kirk Cousins, I see Matt Ryan or Jared Goff, won't wow with his arm velocity or speed, but his football intelligence, both pre and post-snap, separates him. He has an outstanding feel for playing on time and layering throws to attack vulnerable spots in the defense with just enough mobility to avoid sacks at an encouraging rate. The Browns will like Mendoza for a lot of the same reasons they liked Gabriel, except Mendoza has better physical attributes and a higher upside. So, again, the Browns, according to Dane Brugler, if he had his way, he has a idea that the Browns could trade both first-round picks this year and a 2027 second or third-round pick to move up to get Fernando Mendoza in the draft. That is what his scenario, his dream scenario for the Browns for this upcoming draft, that is what he would do in order to get Fernando Mendoza. Now, would you guys welcome that trade? Personally, I don't think so. I don't know if I would go that far to go get Mendoza. To me, you need a lot of stuff on the offensive side of the football. Having a pick that late in the first round, it could go down a little bit. If Jacksonville loses maybe two more games this season, they go 3-2 in the next 5 games or however many games they have to play, it bumps down a little bit. There's still going to be a lot of talent in the first round in terms of wide receivers, especially that the Browns can go out there and get. Now, if they want to make a trade to go up to, I don't know, let's say they go up to number 2 or 3 where the Giants are at, right? And they go out and they trade to go up to the Giants pick, and they decide we're going to go and pick Dante Moore, let's say. I would gladly do number 5 for number 2, and then you can trade maybe, let's say you trade the 5th pick and a 3rd rounder this year or a 3rd rounder next year to move up 3 spots to get up to number 3, or to 2 spots to move up to number 3 to get Dante Moore. Because the Saints have the 2nd pick, they're obviously probably going to pick a quarterback. Maybe they go Reuben Bain. Who knows? But that is a scenario that I would be more comfortable with for the Browns if you package in maybe, if you want to package in a player, if you can, I don't know. Maybe you package the 5th pick and a second rounder from this year or second rounder from next year to move up 2 spots to go up to 3 in order to get your quarterback, that's fine with me too. But trading both first round picks and a second or third next year to move up to the number 1 pick, to me, that's an overpay. And in the mock draft that he has in the article, he goes on to say that the Raiders move up to number 2 to get Dante Moore. To me, I don't think the Browns necessarily have to shed or pay that much in order to get a quarterback in this draft. I don't. Right now, you're at number 5. I don't think you don't have to pay that big of a price to move up to number 1 to get your quarterback in this draft. To me, it's Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza. You get any one of those 3 quarterbacks, I am fine with that. Those are the 3 quarterbacks that are potentially coming out in this draft that I would very much like. I like all 3 of those guys. No matter which one you get, I'm fine with. So I don't understand why the Browns would make that decision to go up, from 5 to 1, and then you'll pay that hefty price. I just want to do it personally. So to me, you want to try and make a trade with the Giants, I'm all for that, as long as you don't have to give up that much of premium picks to go up 2 spots to number 3. As of right now. And we still have 5 weeks left. We have no idea what this draft order is going to be like come April. All right. And we don't know who's coming out yet. We have until January 15th. And then I think January 22nd is when all the players who are in the bowl games in the college football playoff have the deadline to declare whether they're coming out or not. So we have until the 15th of January and the 22nd of January. We'll figure out who the QB prospects are in the first place. Obviously, it's probably Mendoza's most likely going to come out. We'll see if Dante Moore and Ty Simpson come out. But, yeah, I would not make that big of a trade. I would not pay that much to go up to number 1 for Tennessee. And you also have to take into account the New York Jets have 5 first-round picks during the next 2 years or so. So they have a lot more ammunition in terms of premium picks to move up if they want to. They're at number 6 right now because they won last week. So they're in the sixth pick. Do they package some of their first round picks that they have to move up to go get their quarterback? I could see that happening. And to me, I would think a team that's in maybe the Giants or the Titans, maybe even the Saints, those 3 picks, those first 3 picks in the draft, I definitely think a lot of those teams would look at the Jets, take their pick and say, hey, if it's the Browns giving us 2 first-round picks, or if it's the Jets giving us first-round picks, I'd rather have the modicum and the amount that the Jets have than what Cleveland can probably get us. That would just be me if I was one of those GMs for those 3 teams, okay? So, again, not necessarily a big fan of that mock. I would love Fernando Mendoza. Trust me, I would love Fernando Mendoza. I hope maybe if the Browns suck enough, maybe you don't have to wait that long. Maybe you don't have to make that trade. If the Browns lose the next 5 games and they get, the 3rd pick, right? Maybe you don't have to make that trade in order to go get your quarterback, right? But we'll see. We still got 5 weeks left, but just wanted to show you guys that insane scenario. Let me know what you guys think in the chat and in the comment section below, because I'm very interested to see what people have to say about that mock. Would you go after Fernando Mendoza if it meant giving up the 2 first-round picks this year and maybe a 2nd or 3rd round pick next year to go after Fernando Mendoza? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comment section down below. But yeah, just wanted to put that out there. So, guys, those are all the segments I got for you today. A little bit of a quick show. But thank you guys so much for coming out here on your Wednesday morning. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you are new. Thank you guys so much for your support over the last couple of weeks. You guys have been absolutely killing it. Hazahoo, what's going on, man? Says, I'm not the biggest fan of either QB, but I'd rather keep Shedeur over Dillon than draft Mendoza and offensive line. I agree with that. I would love that too. Uh, what do you call it? Jeffrey Champion says, yeah, but if we get Mendoza, he's in here lighting it up. Shedeur fans are yelling for him to start and saying all kinds of stuff about Mendoza. Not going to be good. I mean, you're just gonna have to try and keep the noise out. That's the problem. You're gonna have to keep the noise out. I think, again, you let Shedeur develop. Let him develop. He's going to be fine. If you take a quarterback in this draft, you're going to have to give him the reps. And I think most people are going to be fine with giving a first-round quarterback the majority of the reps. I think most people are going to be fine with that. And again, guys, the Browns have not had a lot of opportunities to draft a quarterback this high. I think the last 15 years, the Browns have only taken 2 quarterbacks. Like, since 95 or 99. They've only taken 2 quarterbacks in the top 15. So it's been a long time since the Browns have taken a quarterback at this high of a pick. All right. I think most people are going to be fine with letting a quarterback take the majority of the reps if you take them with a top 5 pick, especially. Who again says, so Tennessee's giving up on Ward already, or will keep him as well as Mendoza? No, Tennessee's not giving up on Cam Ward. They're not. They're not going to give up on Cam Ward. They're in it for the long haul with Cam Ward, but they don't necessarily need the first overall pick to, get better, right? They got the first overall pick last year, and they're in a position where they can trade, acquire more picks, and get better through more draft picks, later on. Jeffrey Champion says, that's what I would do personally because I think we need a veteran receiver more than a rookie, and there's a lot of free agent offensive linemen. I think you can do both. Jeffrey Champion says, Tyson, Dante Moore, and Mendoza are the only 3 quarterbacks that I would trade up for. Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, and Mendoza are the only 3 quarterbacks in this draft class that I would be absolutely fine taking either one. I would be fine taking either one of those 3. Jeffrey Champion again says, but if Kevin and Barry are in love with a quarterback, I don't mind them giving up stuff to get that quarterback. Well, to me, again, I just don't think you'd have to pay that much to go from 5 to 1. And I would not make a trade with Tennessee. You don't necessarily need the number 1 pick. And Tennessee could just say, we're not trading the number 1 pick. We're going to take a guy like Reuben Bain. Or we're going to take, a Jordan Tyson or Cornell Tate. They could decide to do that. I don't know. But to me, the Browns don't have to give up that much ammunition and that many luxury picks in the draft to get a quarterback. I just don't think that is a necessarily good idea. To me, you can try and move up to number 3 to the Giants, trade with them, and maybe you give up the 5th pick and then a 3rd rounder in this draft, or a 4th round, or a 3rd rounder, or a 2nd rounder in this draft. But then you still keep that 2nd first round pick. So that is what I would do. That's what I would try to do if I'm Andrew Berry, because again, I think Andrew Berry is probably going to stay because he saved his butt with last year's draft. He's hit on almost every single pick in the draft last year. I think Andrew Berry, if I'm Andrew Berry, I'm like, okay, we could try to move up to number 1, but you also have to take into account the Jets have a lot more ammunition and a lot more premium picks to give up than we do. So maybe number 1's out of the question, but what are the Giants looking like? What are the Saints looking like? The Saints have a lot of positions that they need to be looking at. Maybe they don't take a quarterback. They they shore up one of the positions of need that they have. So there's a lot of things that you have to look at when you're deciding whether you want to trade up and what you decide to give up, right? That's the only thing I'm trying to say, okay? But those are the 3 segments I wanted to give you guys today. Once again, thank you guys so much for coming out on your Wednesday morning or whenever you guys are watching this on YouTube. Hit the like button, subscribe if you are new. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Thank you guys so much for coming out. And I'll see you guys all Friday morning for another edition